I'll watch I probably will watch all 12 minutes, but I don't know if I'll devote 12 minutes of stream to it. But
hear about PKA drama. What kind of PKA drama we got, baby?
Slop Father, big ups Pimp when you get back on PKA.
Said that answer before when 10 grand comes in my hand. What's the PKA drama? I asked about it and nobody told me what it was. Let's see what PKA saying. What is this leak?
Yeah, maybe I'll shrink it.
Stuff. Alright, somebody just fill me in. Like, this is too hard to follow in between, like, fucking rounds of Rainbow. So they're giving me, like, PKA and drama, and they're, like, read the subreddit, and, like, it's kind of hard to follow. Apparently, like, they, like a private conversation was leaked. Oh, Chiz gets balled out, but I don't. Let's go.
I can't believe that fucking bitch.
Woody said that he doesn't feel like he has any say in the company besides Chiz sides with Kyle, and that's how the decisions are made, Chiz and Kyle against Woody.
That's not an exact quote.
I feel you. I remember being in that same boat. Here's my take on the PKA thing. I'm gonna side with Woody on it.
We need to locate a bomb.
Because, like, granted, Kyle never played a huge part of the production team when I was a part of the show. Kyle just kind of, like, did his own thing with FPS Russia, and he was consistently showed up and did what he needed to do. I don't know Kyle's role in the show right now, but it seems like they have a more democracy-based where Chiz gets a vote too. And
Actually,
for some reason, I don't think Taylor gets a vote at all. He's just an employee.
That's not true.
Not an owner.
So,
5 seconds to insertion.
I feel like if it was Woody's show by itself, it would be run a lot smoother without the democracy. Let's talk about the PKA stuff. Set off.
This all makes me feel bad. Like, it's anxiety and stress inducing, but I face it.
I don't know. Like, I feel like Chiz is like I said before. Like, the guest situation is Chiz, and at the same time, like, I feel like Kyle wants to talk about what he enjoys, which is fine. It's his podcast. He can do what he fucking wants. But, like, if you're gonna bring guests and you're gonna have, like, people like Chiz bring guests in, regardless if they're repeat guests or not, you got to use who you bring in. Just imagine if Joe Rogan came in and brought, I don't know, who's somebody popular, Donald Trump. Just imagine if Joe Rogan got Donald Trump on his podcast. People look at their phone and they go, damn, Joe Rogan got Donald Trump on there. And they click it. And then Joe Rogan sits there for an hour talking about, like, the Tyson Fury fight, and Trump is just not there.
Wings is right about this. I agree. It's an area where I could have improved. Queb in particular, while not Donald Trump level of popularity, might have brought a fan base that was there for him and not for the show, right? When we have a less known guest, then people are probably there for the show and they learn about the guest in our context. When you bring a guy with 10 million subscribers, they might come just to see him. And, American politics was maybe not a very good topic. We didn't use Queb. I didn't originally look at it through this lens, but I think that Queb may have did his, like, what's wrong with PKA public post in response to some negative feedback about his appearance. And he's like, hey, my appearance could have been a lot better if the host set me up for success, and he's not wrong. But let's listen to more.
Right. Trump's just like, you going to talk to me about Corona? You going to talk about the impeachment? You going to talk to me about the hotels? Like, what are we going to do? Right? That's bad podcasting. That's completely bad podcasting. If Joe Rogan did that, people would be like, what are you fucking doing? But, like, PKA does it consistently over and over and over again. They don't use their guest, right? And you can go find situations where we didn't. I'm not trying to say I'm perfect about this, but, like, I've never made $100,000 a year off a podcast. And, like, I was never put in a role where I was making $100,000 a year on a podcast. Right? So, like, you got to hold yourself to a different standard when you're making real motherfucking money to it. Right? Most of my podcasts are just, a bunch of boys hanging around. Like, I think we used to make like $200 a month off the podcast show.
Sounds about right, yeah.
You know, so that right there needs to be addressed. Number one. That's number one.
He may
Number two, I've never really
overestimated
had a problem with the audio of PK. It's gotten better since we started, but like, I've always thought it was good enough. I mean, like, I don't think the audio by itself is going to like do leaps and bounds more business. I think the next step up with the audio is like adding music, adding set music, things like that.
Soundboard,
or maybe
maybe
even like doing the podcast with like a set designer, kind of like somebody that can pick what windows pop up and like whose camera we're gonna see, that kind of deal. Like have everybody individually film themselves and send it to an editor, but like that's a whole lot of motherfucking work. But
he might be right about that in terms of increasing the production value. As a counterpoint, the most popular podcasts in the world don't do that, and you might get away from the format, you know? There's a reason people like amateur porn. There's a reason people like podcasting, and it's usually not having a production crew. Even JRE is kind of like just two cameras and guys talking.
you make $100,000 a year. You can do that. You should be at that level where
I don't know
like,
where he gets his numbers.
You
But carry
know,
on.
you have like if you go watch Joe Rogan clips, you see Joe Rogan talk about like the Patterson film with the Bigfoot. He shows that footage and he shows like
We do that.
footage of them surfing, and then he shows like the guests talking about it, things like that. Would I agree that Chiz? This is all secondhand information I'm given, so if this is wrong, I'm sorry. In a few fact, would I agree that Chiz is not doing the best job? I would agree that Chiz is not doing the best job. He has 4 years of material to sell. He has millions of views he can sell, and he has a lot of overhead, and they also can fucking pay. Part of that Patreon money was to help pay for fucking guests, right? Just fucking pay for guests. Like if somebody wants $2,000, you give them $2,000 if they're going to get you more notoriety.
So, I actually talked to Chiz a lot recently, and I feel like I've had some deficiencies in not talking to Chiz as much as I could have. He does a lot more than I recognized. Everyone gets on him, but once I tap into it, like, I'm not the manager of the show. People think I am, but sometimes that's a void that needs to be filled. And when I sync up with guys, it's like, oh shit, if I am the manager, I'm a shitty one because I'm not realizing the contributions that people make. On the paying thing, that's always been tricky. Guests that work for $2,000 also work for free. $2,000 doesn't get you anything. If I wanted to get, let's say Joe Rogan, right? I'd love to get Joe Rogan. I think he's amazing. How much do you think it costs to get Joe Rogan to do something he doesn't feel like doing? Right? The answer is 6 digits, 7 digits, something like that. Comedians, people who have a book out, they all pop up. They do publicity tours. You know, that's how we got, who's the To Catch a Predator guy? Well, you guys surely remember his name, Chris Hansen. That's how we got him. You know, he had a show, a GoFundMe that he was looking to promote. You can get people for free that you can also get for $2,000. When you start getting people that demand appearance fees, like a Miley Cyrus, it becomes unaffordable for a show like ours.
Like, for example, like, if somebody like, I don't know, Joe Biden wanted to, like, promote his campaign on your podcast, and you're like, yo, we got this many viewers, we got this many eyes, we have a young demographic market, and plus we'll give you $1,000 to boot, Joe Biden would be huge.
Joe Biden would be huge, but $1,000 doesn't sway his decision to show or not show. I think Wings is just off target on this part.
No matter what political stance that you get on, right? I mean, like, there's all kinds of things that you can do. But, like, I feel like Chiz is just not doing his job as well as he could be. And I think I called Chiz out on that before. Like, it's Chiz's job is to get the guest, and, like, having consistently the same guest. Like, I forgot how they said this guy named Koala Pop or something like that.
Pueblo Cop.
He's on his 7th time. Like, shit, son. I haven't even been a guest on PKA 7 times.
Wings would be a good get.
Like,
Pueblo Cop's a 10 million sub
like,
channel.
there's that one dude
He's
that's
a
a
good
comedian that has like the big forehead. I don't know his name either.
Steve Hostetter.
Honestly, I would be a better producer. Like, every time I went out to get a guest, I always went bigger. Like I got Wax, which they've gotten Wax again. I've gotten Sage Francis.
I like Wax.
I've got I went to try to get the Navy SEAL guy, even though he lied to us. I went and tried to find a fucking Navy SEAL guy.
So this actually was a quality that I always admired in Wings when he was on the show. I wouldn't say he landed big guests, but he would often say like, man, we should get Jay-Z. We should get this guy or that guy. And he dreamed bigger than I dream. And I always thought that was kind of cool. But when I compare results, I feel like Chiz has landed bigger guests than Wings ever did. Is Big Wax the biggest guest Wings ever landed? I love that guy, and I listen to his music, and it's on my playlist. I'm not knocking Big Wax at all. I'd like to have him again. But when I look at him versus like Chris Hansen, Steve Hofstetter, Milo Yiannopoulos near peak, and like those guys, Jordan Peterson, Wings dreamed big, and I always admired that and respected it. But Chiz has delivered bigger.
Right before I got kicked off, I was lining Glenn Jacobs up to be on the podcast because he was at that point he was hurt and he was out of the WWE, and he's a very political guy, and I figured he'd be an interesting conversation to come in and talk about like the WWE stuff, maybe do some shoot stories, maybe talk some politics, that kind of stuff. But at this point, you can't bring Only Use Me Blade would actually be a good guess at this point, but like you can't bring Jericho and Tucker on and be like.
I actually talked to Chiz about Only Use Me Blade recently, and I think we're going to get him. It turns out that he's hard to get. He doesn't have a Twitter. He doesn't have an Instagram. I think I'm telling this about 90% right. This is what Chael Sonnen does. So work with me. And I think the strategy now is for Chiz to literally catch him live streaming and donate to him as a way to get Blade's attention. Blade's social media is a little bit right only, kind of like mine. Like it's kind of hard to get my attention, and I do that intentionally because sometimes if I was more accessible, then people use that to hurt my feelings. Maybe Blade's doing a similar thing, but anyway, I hope we get Blade, and we're on the same team there. And it might not be a whole show, by the way. Blade might be a good 1 or 2 hour guest instead of 4.
Like, hey, welcome to the 5th time we've seen it. Yeah, Glenn Jacobs is Kane. Yeah, I was in contact with Glenn Jacobs to get on PKA. I mean, there's a lot of those old wrestlers. You give them $500, they'll come on and talk about shit. Like, there's an entire, subgenre of, shoot commentaries that people just give these guys. Like, you ain't got to get A-list wrestlers like Kevin Nash. You can go get a fucking C-list wrestler. Like, who's somebody at C-list? Like Disco Inferno, right? I bet the Disco Inferno has a ton of fun stories because he was part of the WCW talent team. He was part of the booking team. He was a cruiserweight champion. He traveled all over the world. You could talk about hookers, rats. There's all kinds of shit you could do with the Disco Inferno.
I actually like this idea. It's not one that I would have thought of on my own, but that is an untapped area for guests. Having said that, Chiz brought on 2 poker stars, and maybe that's an area that Wings didn't think of. So for him to say, we're not doing a good job, I'm misquoting him, but this is how you do better. I think that this is actually just additional to stuff we're doing now.
And I bet you Disco Inferno will be $500 to get on. Right? Even if wrestling's boring, the stories don't have to be. New Jack, for example. Well, New Jack's kind of hot right now because of the Vice story. But New Jack back in the day, $500 New Jack would have got on there for a couple hours.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the kind of shit motherfuckers want to see.
He's not wrong. Yeah.
C-list fucking rappers and singers or people that come up. There's all kinds of folk singers out there that you can go get that live lives, or people that had hit songs that aren't really popular anymore. Like the Take On Me guy from Aha. I'm sure somebody from Aha would probably be a good guest.
I watched Christopher Cross go on the Howard Stern show. Forgive me for what I'm about to do. You guys probably don't know this Christopher Cross. You might know Chris Cross, the rapper. Christopher Cross, and forgive me, is the guy that has that song that goes, sailing, take me away to that words that wood doesn't know. That guy. He came on the Howard Stern show, and Howard Stern, before he talked to him, it turns out behind the scenes, was pushing back on Baba Booey, Gary DeBossi, you know me and names, and And he's like, who is this boring guy that's saying sailing? This is terrible. But Baba Booey is like, hey, give it a shot. And it turned out that show was a winner. It was a home run. That guy had stories. Turns out girls want to fuck the sailing guy, you know? And this idea of catching people, old guests tend to be good. Not repeat, old not meaning repeat, but old meaning people who've lived a life. Tend to be really interesting people. And the wrestler thing is a good idea, but maybe we expand that to all sorts of guys who are on the second half of the bell curve of their popularity and have lived an interesting life.
Well, the porn star was my idea as well, but Kitty came through with Aria Aspen, and I feel like we didn't do enough with her as well, you know, but that...
I don't know that he's right about that. Like, porn star sounds super interesting, but when she talked about it, it was actually just a little bit sad. And how she did one scene where the guy did her from behind with the foot, with a boot on her ear, and she finished it like emotionally hurt. And on some ways it's interesting, but it also didn't lead to like really great content. I feel like it's more fascinating talking about it in retrospect, but in real time, you're just like, ouch, I'm sorry that happened to you. And yeah,
that's that. Other guests I got for the show. I got the Cinema Snob. I also got Lord Cat, which a lot of people didn't like Lord Cat, but you know, hit or miss. I liked Lord Cat, and I thought he'd be an interesting guest. It was pretty early.
I agree with him here. I specifically don't remember Lord Cat, but I have my own. His name is Ben Gravy. And sometimes when you roll the dice, you don't get double sixes. But that doesn't mean that rolling the dice was a mistake. Try a new guest. Maybe a smart idea, if you don't think the guy's a guaranteed home run, is try new guests for an hour, 90 minutes, 2 hours. And then, you know, do the show with 3 hosts after that. But bringing in new people and having them not work out is just a natural byproduct of bringing in new people. You know, we could bring on like Tucker, for example, again and again and again, and always have great shows, but you roll the dice and try new people.
I never knew about Myrtle Beach Safari until they popularized it on Tiger King. You got to ask porn stars the right questions too. Like you don't ask the porn stars like, well, how much money do you get? You know, you ask the porn stars the right question and be like, hypothetically, right? How much money would I have to have in my hand for you to like eat a bitch out on her period? Like realistically, I'm not calling you a whore or anything, but like everybody's got a price.
Okay, this is funny. You do have to be like, a question like that could derail the show, shut down a guest, and have her not participate going forward. That's a risky question. I see the quality in it, but I also see the downsides.
What would your price be? You know, shit like that. Like, that's the kind of shit that people be like, I think I'm going to take the long way to work. I want to hear this story. That's what people want to hear and listen to, and that's what PKA needs to be, and that's what PKA was designed to be, and I feel like they've gotten too tame. People have been so concerned with, like, Taylor poning me, like, being the better host. They've lost sight of like what the podcast was actually meant to do, which was to entertain people.
I don't see that. He probably gets it. If that's just like 0.1% of the audience doing that, they all point it right at him, and I'm sure he sees something I don't. The show he describes, just off the rails, inappropriate questions all the time, can be a little shallow. I think that's just a part of what the show can be.
And like for example, like if Jericho was on, I'd ask Jericho about the time he got fucking maced in Texas by the fucking cops, and how did it affect his view on cops from that, you know, shit like that. Yeah, the stream's about
I didn't know
man.
about that.
What's stopping me from coming back on PK?
Okay, Wings.
I mean, like, Boogie's an interesting conversation, too. The problem with Boogie, he's an alpha talker, and you got to over-alpha talk him.
You think?
Like, if you let Boogie, he'll control the entire line of conversation. It's not that he wants to. It's his defense mechanism from him. Like, Boogie lives in this realm where he's the center of importance, and that's pretty much the shell he's built around him. And if you go to watch Boogie doing anything publicly, he's always the alpha talker. And as soon as it isn't about him, it's gonna go downhill. So what you gotta do is you gotta keep the conversation about him, but you gotta keep it in a light that is more fun and an angle that's more fun for viewers.
Okay. So I actually disagreed until I got to the second half. I didn't see Boogie as an alpha talker that like when I hear alpha talker, I think you're trying to get a word in and I just over talk you. I did see Boogie only really be interested in talking about himself. If you ask him about his career, his ups, his downs, what's right, what's wrong, what this guy did, how he got where he is, he's happy to discuss that. And I found it fascinating. It wasn't a highly rated show, so I think I'm in a minority. But I think that this curve, this ride he's taken, right? And it's all... His channel from the beginning has been him trying to be what you want him to be. Other people see that through this lens of like manipulation. But when he started off and he was the nicest guy on YouTube, that was him trying to be what he thought you wanted. And then when they found out the real him, and now they're saying he's fake and manipulative and this and that, and he's really just trying to be what you want. He's just trying to please everybody. And at some point that doesn't work. The fence sitting he's taken so much heat for, to me, it's just another manifestation of Boogie's desire to be what you want to be and not offend everyone and make both sides enjoy him. And I thought that was fascinating, but the audience didn't. I wanted to hear all about the highs and lows and what it's like and what his fears are, right? Boogie doesn't have a lot of job skills outside of entertainment. And what are we going to do next? And where are we? And he had a little nest egg, but we know he got divorced, and no one post-divorce is very wealthy. And, so he's got real stress on. He sort of had a divorce, lost his audience, and crazy hard times on him. And we talked about that, but people didn't love it. Then he went to this, then Wing shifted to, he only wants to talk about himself. And I did see a little of that. It seemed like when the topic wasn't Boogie, maybe he just lacked expertise or the ability to talk about things where he didn't have expertise. Whereas the PKA hosts thrive in talking about things we know nothing about.
Right. Like I'd be like, Boogie, me and you both had this surgery recently. And I seen you had some really fine ass women. All right. Have you ever had sex in any odd places? Yet? Something along the lines of that. Could you picture Boogie banging like that fucking grave ghoul bitch in the back of his fucking Crown Victoria? Or like, getting some roadhead while he test drove that Tesla he was thinking about buying? I ain't give a fuck if he lies to me. I just want a good story.
I was going to say that's what
you know what? Get. You know what they haven't asked Boogie? I guarantee they haven't asked Boogie this, and this will not ask Boogie if he was on the podcast, right?
All right.
I'd be like, Boogie, you get a whole fucking bunch of shit about your damn teeth. What is your opinion on your teeth? Like, are you sitting here like, my teeth shine so fucking bright that the haters can't see me fully, they fully don't understand? Or like, are you feeling regret? Like, is life better with the new teeth? How's the teeth going? But it is what it is.
I like that.
I'm going to say to you guys, I'm Audi 5000. I hope you guys have a wonderful time. And I'll see you guys later.
Sexy wings. Yeah. So my mind is open. Some of the things Wings brought I thought were really good and insightful. His ideas for where to find new guests I thought was pretty cool. He mentioned pro wrestlers, but there's a whole bunch of like one-hit wonders and pro wrestlers and stuff that might be interesting that PKA could land. What was I going to say? That I liked. Some of the stuff about asking porn stars how much it costs to have them eat out another girl who's on her period. Like, I actually don't think that would... I think that would be a negative for the show. It sounds funny at first. But then, like, I swear, if I asked that question, everyone would be like, Woody's so socially retarded. After he asked that, there was nothing good that came out of her for the rest of the show. Thanks, Resin7. But he's, spitballing off the top of his head. Not every piece of it's going to be gold. That's the nature of what he was doing there. And then what was the last thing he talked about? Oh, Boogie and the teeth. That's a pretty neat question. There was an element of, hey, do you regret it? which almost implies like he should. But you could ask that question and get him to open up about his teeth, and I think that'd be pretty interesting content. Now, his teeth are a paid sponsorship, so I don't know what that would surely be in his mind as he answered it. But you're not going to get a good answer if you don't ask the question, so give it a go. See what's up. So anyway, yeah, and people are saying, like, we want Wings back, pay Wings. Like, look, I've seen your comments. I'd like him to. I don't know if it would really work, the 10 grand. I don't know if it'd be worth 10 grand. Look, the thoughts are in my head. I don't want to say too much. I don't operate this thing. People think I make all these calls. I don't. There's a bunch of people in this, but I'm going to talk to my co-hosts and Chiz about it and ask them how they feel about this. Yeah, 500 gets them on the show. I'll tell you this. For 500, like, I would pay that in a second.